All right, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the War Games podcast number 18. Thank you all for joining me tonight, and with me on the podcast, as we just found out a little bit ago, is in fact not the one and only Loster. Thank you for joining me, Loster.
Hello, thank you. Yeah, I was an imposter apparently.
Yeah, Loster's all hyped up because of CNC music.
Yes.
As you said, the second best song in Red Alert, but I didn't use Hell March because everybody uses Hell March. So
yeah, the third best is Blow It Up. That's probably my third favorite song.
Probably.
Yeah.
So got a couple of different things to talk about tonight. Loster's actually got some stuff he wants to talk about. The first thing I want to go over tonight actually isn't ArmA related at all. Actually, the majority of the stuff we're going to be talking about tonight isn't going to be ArmA related. But I wanted to give you guys a heads up, or I guess a kind of a follow-up with the GTA 5 stuff. As you guys know, a while back during one of the podcasts, I had mentioned that I wanted to get into the GTA 5 RP stuff, that I had tried doing it with Department of Justice, the DOJ guys, and I couldn't get into it because of the kids and shit. So turned out that in like late December, Family RP, which is who Sheriff Eli used to do it with, opened up applications. I didn't see it until like a week or two ago. So I put in my application, and it was immediately denied because I haven't been a part of their group for 2 months. So I have no idea what the fuck they mean by not being a part of their group or not being a member for 2 months. I don't know. I've been on their forums since like fucking late November. But anyways, so they denied it because I haven't been a member for 2 months, and then they told me to reapply a month after that response. So essentially they can suck a dick. I'm not waiting 2-3 months to get into it. It's not that fucking vital to me. If they want to, turn people away with experience, that's their own fucking prerogative. So GTA 5 RP isn't going to be happening. I think maybe their heads are a little bit too big for their own fucking bodies in that sense. So yeah, that's not going to be happening.
That happened
Uh,
to me. Not same community, but it was a 5RP community where I had to. I was just getting interested in it, and I'm like, oh, I want to check out a
mhm.
community and not a community full of kids. I want to actually,
Right, what we're used to.
we're in a milsim community, so generally speaking, we don't deal with kids. We, for the most part, deal with people, adults, 18 and up. So I looked for a 5RP unit, and there was like this super long application process, and I filled it all out, and it had all these these like scenarios, like what do you do if
Hmm.
someone points a gun at you and your back is to them? According to the rules, it would be fail RP for you to turn around and point your gun back at them, because in a real life scenario, you'd be dead. So I read the rules and I read what their policies and everything, and they asked me what my RP experience was, and I told them that I'm in a milsim unit, blah blah blah. And like you, my application was immediately denied because my application wasn't RP enough. It wasn't. It wasn't. I don't know. I didn't fit the bill
You
apparently.
didn't check all the boxes.
Right.
Yeah, apparently because I put in my application, who we are, what we do, and shit. Um, so apparently my real world experience and my 3 years of experience being in the largest realism unit in the world isn't enough for them. So I was like, yeah, you guys can suck a dick. Because the shit I've seen, you guys are not that fucking serious. I could take 5 of you into my realism unit and probably make 2 of you cry, so fuck off. Uh, so yeah, like I said, GTA 5 isn't gonna happen. I really wish it would. I wish we had the fucking technical ability to just do it our goddamn selves, because obviously that would be the best case scenario, to just be able to run one ourselves. Um, but unfortunately, we just don't have the people with the know-how to do it. Uh, Now, to kind of touch on ArmA this week, what we've had going on, or I guess last week, what we've had going on. As you guys know, if you've been watching the streams, this cycle, and as we've talked about before, a cycle for us is 2 weeks. This cycle was the start of our FTXs for 2018, whole new year. Not necessarily anything new unit wise, aside from just kind of a fresh year, and us running things the way we want to run things. And we went into this first FTX cycle knowing that unit wide we needed to work on CQC. And any of you guys that watch my streams and stuff, especially OSA, that's something that I take very seriously, which is why I said that's what we need to train on. And so we went into the FTX cycle trying to get everybody trained up. And any of you guys that watch the streams know we spent a lot of time, actually training and, not out there in the field. Pretty much every night, each task force, we didn't even head out to the AO until damn near 2 hours in. Well, really an hour and a half, because everybody doesn't really get in there and we don't get going until 20:30. So we spent a lot of time training, not nearly as in depth as what I would like. Personally, I think uh, in that situation, we almost need to split the task force, and myself and whoever else is in there from HQ need to kind of take our own groups, if you will, and make it a little more in depth, a little more detailed, and a little more personal. Uh, there's a reason our OSUT classes are limited to 16 people, because you start getting over that, it's very difficult to connect with those people and know that you're actually teaching them, they're actually paying attention, they're learning. Uh, and that's kind of the struggle we have with trying to teach an entire fucking task force on, whatever element it is we're training on in the FTX. So that may be something that I, try to do at some point. We'll see. Uh, what about for you, Loster? What do you think about doing like the full task force, or like splitting the task force up? Do you think it would be better the way we currently do it, or would you prefer it to be a little more detailed and a little more personal?
I think it would be better if it was a little more personal, to be honest with you. Generally speaking, especially with platoon trainings and FTXs on the weekends and everything, um, it, it it's hard. I mean, I'll be perfectly honest with you. To have one person give a classroom essentially for for,
Hmm.
30 plus people, you're not going to get everyone's attention at the same time. You're just not going to. Um,
Yeah, and it's
especially when
hard to get everybody to see what's actually happening.
right. That was a big thing for me, especially there's always I think the go-to across the board seems to be mount for a lot of people. That includes you. That includes hammer, and drum. So Richie likes to do mount too, and when he would do mount, he's trying to demonstrate to everyone. And it's like people are in the back; they can't really hear him, but they also can't crowd around either because then the people that are doing the demonstration don't have room to do the demonstration. So it's
Right.
like trying to find that middle ground between fuck this, I'll just alt tab, and I'm actually going to pay attention. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. All right. Yeah, and if you guys hear any beeping, it's fucking Loster's fire
It's
alarm
my smoke
thing,
alarm.
smoke
I
alarm. Yeah.
apologize.
Uh, so yeah, I agree. I mean, it's definitely better to be not necessarily one on one, obviously, but smaller groups. For back when I was squad leading, I didn't stream and stuff like that, but our squad trainings, like a short training for us was 2 hours. You were in there training for 2 hours, not, the hour it takes to fucking get all the idiots in there and get set up and all of that shit. No, like a short training for us was 2 hours. On average, it was probably 2.5 to 3 hours that we were in there training because I'm methodical as fuck when I'm training guys. If we're out in the field, live fire, and I see somebody do something wrong, I stop them right in their tracks and unfuck it. I will shut down the entire training, fix a problem, and then start the training back up. And that's what I personally really like doing. I think it allows guys to learn the most. I am not a subscriber to the idea of go out there, do a 2 hour long training, and then at the end of it, tell them everything they did wrong. Because let's face it, I don't remember what the fuck happened an hour and a half ago and that guy standing in the window. Like, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. So that's the way I prefer to do things. Some people don't because it kind of kills the momentum of whatever you're doing. And I can understand that, but when you're there to get a job done and the job is training, then that's what I do. I turn it into a fucking classroom. Uh, but yeah, so that was what we had going on this last week in ArmA. Just trying to get the guys trained up on mount. Like I said, start of a new year, just kind of starting fresh. And we also, did some testing with fast roping and so on. Still only half-ass works. Doesn't work nearly as well as it did back in the day with AGM. Why they had to fumble fuck around with it, I have no idea, because it's all the same goddamn guys, but whatever. I guess they do what the fuck ever it is they want to do, but it worked somewhat. uh, but yeah, that was pretty much it for ArmA. We haven't really had anything super important or really huge or anything going on. Just trying to get the guys trained up in preparation for the next deployment. And no, I don't know when the next deployment is. And even if I did, I would not tell you. So what I want to move on to now is Loster actually had a couple of points that he wanted to bring up, and some points that I also feel pretty strongly about. And I know we're kind of along the same wavelength with a lot of this stuff. So, Loster, I know that you were wanting to do not necessarily like a rebranding with your YouTube, but you were wanting to try some new things with some of your YouTube videos. And when you had brought that up, you said the first video, our first game you were going to kind of go over and talk about and stuff was what?
Those Brothers in Arms, the franchise as a whole,
Okay,
where it
and
started, where it's going, possibly, and what's been going
is it
on.
is it not completely dead at this point? Is there still I mean, obviously the IP is still out there, but is there anything like in the works on that
Uh,
IP?
so here's the thing. It's funny that you mentioned that because that's actually going to be the name of the video. Is it dead or is it dormant? It's basically dead or dormant. That's going to be the name
Right.
of the video. Um, the only news that we have on Brothers in Arms at this point is a teaser. I think I actually because I've been doing my research for the video. There's a article on GameZone.com about it, that Randy Pitchford, the CEO for or whatever the fuck he is, the president of Gearbox, someone tweeted him when Call of Duty World War II came out. It's the picture on the front cover is that soldier with his hands folded with dog tags in
Hmm.
his hands. That's the same thing from Brothers in Arms Hell's Highway. Randy Pitchford tweeted a photo saying, I'll leave this right here, and
Yeah, they
it's a
stole your
side by
shit.
side. Yeah, it's a side by side comparison of Matt Baker, the protagonist from Brothers in Arms, and the cover for Call of Duty World War II. Someone tweeted him asking, uh, I think the tweet basically said, if we're gonna be getting a new Brothers in Arms game like ever again. The tweet that was sent back by Randy Pitchford was simply, "We're working on it." It's kind of ambiguous, but
Right. You might as well
there's
just
not.
said soon TM.
Yeah, and there's nothing. I checked Gearbox's website. I checked their Twitter feed. I tried to like Google anything I could find. As of now, after they canceled that awful fucking Furious 4 or whatever the fuck game that was, there's been no news. There's not been no official news. Nothing's been posted by anybody regarding it.
Now that kind of sucks, but at the same time, at least it's not, the studio's dead or, whatever. There's
Right.
still a chance. Um, and for any of you guys that don't know what we're talking about, Brothers in Arms, the series of games, when did the first one come out? Because you were talking about this earlier. When was it? 2005?
2005. It released on PS2, Xbox, and PC March of '05. It was just a good game. It didn't break any records. It didn't like blow as anybody's mind, but it also wasn't the same kind of game that was out there. It was back when World War II games were still popular. Call of Duty 2 was coming out the same year in October, so it was between Call of Duty 1 and Call of Duty 2. So people were still hungry for World War II games.
Right. And the thing that made Brothers in Arms so special, aside from the content matter and that it was real military units in real places that they actually fought. I mean, these guys went as far as to go to actual location, making measurements and shit, so things were accurate, like up to the inch, as far as building placements, roads, stuff like that. I mean, it was a huge, huge undertaking that I personally had never seen done in a game.
Correct.
Uh, but it wasn't your Call of Duty. It wasn't your Medal of Honor. It wasn't the run and gun type thing. You had to use real tactics. You had to have a base of fire element. You had to have a maneuvering element. And it it wasn't that you had to have necessarily experience with that stuff. It taught you how to do it. And it genuinely taught you the basics of fire and maneuver and small unit tactics in a video game, which
Mhm.
at that time was fucking unheard of. It was like Doom, Quake, Call of Duty, Medal of Honor. It was all first-person shooters. And then you had some turn-based stuff in there as well, in the form of like XCOM and shit like that.
Yeah.
Uh, and I remember there was another game that was very similar to Brothers in Arms, but it was modern day. It was something like Hammerhead,
Full
or
Spectrum Warrior.
was it? No, it wasn't Full Spectrum, or maybe it was Full Spectrum Warrior.
You had two fire teams.
Yeah, that is it. Yep, that
Yep.
is it. When did that come out? Was that before or after
That
Brothers in
was
Arms?
after because it was a. Oh no, it wasn't. It was an Xbox game. Shit.
I think it was
Um,
right around the same time. I would have to look, but I specifically remember because I was playing Brothers in Arms, and obviously that was World War II, and then I played the other one, and it was modern day, but it was very similar in the way it was handled and the tactics and all of that. And I remember being impressed with it. But back to Brothers in Arms, one of the other things that was very special about it was the storytelling in Brothers in Arms,
mhm.
because it wasn't just run and gun. There were characters, they had stories, there was actual, really good voice acting done for it. Um, and that carried on throughout the entire series of Brothers in Arms, that they had really good storytelling. And obviously they have great fucking material to work with. Obviously the era of World War II had some amazing stories with amazing people. So they had a lot of really good material to work with. But that's kind of my problem with, things like Call of Duty World War II and stuff like that, is they have such great material to work with, and then they just squat down, pinch a loaf on the carpet, and say enjoy. Uh,
Right. That
so
alone, like that alone, being in World War II alone is pretty much all you need to tell a good story. Like you don't
yeah,
have to fucking do all this crazy Michael Bay nonsense. Like you don't have to. You can make it cinematic and engaging, but that alone is its own story. It's fucking World War II. It's like it's like the biggest fucking war in the in our history. Like you don't have to like go
yeah,
nuts
you
with it.
don't need to Hollywood it up.
Right. It already is this amazing story. You can just pick a small piece of it, and that's your story, and then you just work off of that.
Well, then the question I have for you on this then is, with Brothers in Arms, what do you think was the aspect of that game that really, kind of solidified it for you? Was it the use of the tactics? Was it the gameplay itself? Was it the storytelling in it? Was it the graphics? What was it about that game that, kind of made it stand out to you?
I will say it wasn't really the gameplay, so to speak, because I was used to uh, Doom and Call of Duty and things like that, and the gunplay in Bows and Arms really isn't all that great. The fact that you can aim down the sight was still relatively new at the time. Call of Duty had done it a couple years prior, but it wasn't standard fare yet.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah,
and
believe it or not, those of you guys that are young, we didn't always get actual sights on our guns. We just used to get a crosshair. And even before that, you didn't even get a crosshair. You just had to follow your fucking bullets.
or like if you had Rainbow Six or like Raven Shield, you were lucky if you had your gun on the screen.
Yeah.
Uh, but um, but yeah, and it's in I think it's in like the Unreal 2 engine or something like that, or Unreal 3 engine, whatever was out at the time. And it's not the graphics either, because it's not a necessarily attractive looking game. It's really brown and muddy, and the textures really aren't all that great. But it's just something about like latching onto the characters. It's really a prime example of graphics aren't everything, because it's a really well told story, and just going from mission to mission, doing these tactics of setting, challenging yourself to seeing what's in front of you. Like every engagement was like a puzzle, and you had to figure out how you were going to solve this puzzle.
Right.
And that was really the payoff. I was accomplishing the goal. What's in front of you? You're outnumbered, but it doesn't matter that you're outnumbered. You're going to outsmart. You're gonna use what you know and outsmart the Germans. You're gonna use what you know and outwit them. And that's what the reward is. The reward isn't killing the bad guys. The reward is succeeding
Yeah,
when you
that you
probably shouldn't
accomplished
have.
it. And
Yeah.
and the thing I really remember about that game is, even for then, the AI was pretty impressive. Like the AI would try and flank you and
Hmm.
get around and would throw grenades and stuff like that. Like shit that games even now can't fucking do properly.
Right.
They were doing it fucking 13 years ago. Uh and that still to this day surprises me. And you brought up that it wasn't all about the graphics, and that's something that I'm a huge believer in. That obviously graphics are not everything. Like Ghost Recon Wildlands was fucking beautiful. Game was so goddamn buggy. It looked like
Yeah.
it belonged in a New
Yeah.
York City apartment because there was fucking cockroaches everywhere. Like it it looked amazing. Same thing with what's the other one? Fucking Division. Division. When I first played that, like I'll say I like the Division. It gave me 2-3 weeks of tons of entertainment. Me and Hackman and Franklin and everybody had a great fucking time playing it until we got to the end. But it was absolutely gorgeous. Like that game at night when there's snow falling is just fucking beautiful. But there was nothing else to the game. And it was the same thing with Ghost Recon Wildlands. Like there was no real story there. And the gameplay didn't make up for that. And the reason I bring that up is one of the best series of games, in my opinion, despite how it ended, is Mass Effect. Okay, Mass Effect 1, 2, and 3 are three of the greatest games I've ever played. And you know, I mentioned the ending. I still wasn't even really that fucking upset with the ending. Like, it's gotta fucking end somehow. Quit fucking whining that you didn't get a happy ending. But even now, like every year or two, I'll go back and play through all three Mass Effects because, yeah, even now the graphics aren't amazing. When they came out, they were pretty goddamn good. But, you know, even now, I'll go back and play them because, one, the storytelling is absolutely amazing. Two, the gameplay is fucking amazing. Like, Mass Effect 3 is one of the best playing third person shooters I have ever played. Hands down. I think that's why I liked The Division so much, because it played a lot like Mass Effect 3 with the cover system and so on. But yeah, that game is, I mean, shit, over a decade old, and I still love it. And it's not about the graphics, it's about the storytelling and the gameplay mechanics themselves. Um, and Brothers in Arms is another one like that, where the graphics aren't amazing, but it has that story that keeps you invested. And I think the Witcher series is another one that does that, where the story and also the gameplay just keeps you interested no matter what else is going on. Uh, but for you, Loster, what are kind of the ones that stand out to you that are like, oh yeah, it's, you know, 10, 15 years old, but I'll still go back and play it?
Oh, without a question. I mean, Doom will always be my go-to forever. For the rest of my life, Doom is my favorite game of all time. Period. Um, I'm trying to think. You go back, honestly, like, I mean, you and I are always going to agree on this, I'm pretty sure, until the day both of us die. Like, you can go back and play the original CNC. I mean, let's be
Oh,
honest, that isn't a
absolutely.
very attractive game. It's like the
Yeah,
resolution is like 320 by something. It's fucking ugly. But it's CNC, dude. You can't.
yeah.
y-
It's never been about the graphics. It never will be about the graphics. It's not even about
right.
the story, even though the story is great, but it's meant to be kind of campy and jokey. It's about the gameplay.
Yeah. I'd say I'm trying to think of some of the older titles. I was pretty fond of like Tomb Raider 2. I like that one a lot. That was
I
probably one of
never
my favorite Tomb Raider games.
Yeah, I never got into the Tomb Raider series until the recent resurgence when they started remaking them. I never played any of them. Why, I'm not really sure. Um, maybe was Tomb Raider, was that a PlayStation or was that on both consoles back in the
It
day?
was on PlayStation.
Maybe that's why.
It was originally a PC release, but they
Yeah,
ported it to. I think Tomb Raider 2 got ported because I remember I had a PlayStation demo disc, and it had Tomb Raider 2 on it, so I remember that.
yeah. And very quickly, Assault, thank you for that 7 month resub. Can't believe it's been that long already, but thank you very, very much for the continued support to the channel and everything I got going on here. Um, and you know, the reason I mentioned, or reason I asked why it was on PlayStation, I played PlayStation when the first PlayStation was out, and then I ended up getting an Xbox, and that was actually the last console that I owned was an original Xbox. Um, and I see someone, mentioning Supa mentioning Skyrim and Oblivion. For me, Skyrim not so much. I wasn't that impressed with Skyrim. Why, I'm not really sure. Oblivion, absolutely. Back in the day with the fucking Ninroot, yeah, me and my brother had an account on the Xbox with probably over 1,000 hours on it in Oblivion. But Skyrim, I've played it. I've gone all the way through it. I couldn't. It wasn't the same as Oblivion for me. Um, but anyways, the reason I had brought up PlayStation and stuff is, I've always played on consoles up until the Xbox. I've played on pretty much every console up until then. Atari's, SNES, uh, original Nintendo, Sega Dreamcast, all of that stuff. Because that's what I grew up with. I mean, we had at one point in time, we had a fucking Atari, a Nintendo and a Sega all hooked up to one TV. Back when you had the little box in the back where you had to turn the switch to what channel you wanted, because each game system was on a different channel, whether it be 2, 3, or 4. And then that decided which system you were going to play. But I didn't get into PC gaming until, well, pretty much well after most people did. Like I said, it was after the original Xbox that I finally kind of got into PC gaming. And the reason for that was the expense. Because when I was growing up, nobody had computers. I remember the only person I knew that had a computer was my uncle. He went and bought a brand new, I think it was Gateway back then, that had the cow print boxes. Or maybe it was Dell, I can't remember. But I remember when he brought it home brand new with that cow print box. And that was the only person I knew, shit, well into my teens, that had a computer. And that was back with the original, true floppy disk that you could slap the shit out of somebody with. And that was the only computer I had played, because we always had consoles, until my brother ended up getting one. And, Loster mentioned CNC. We were huge CNC fans. I mean, huge. There was a point in time where we could name all fucking 17 CNCs and their expansions and what order they came out in. We were beta testers for Redwood at one point. So I actually got to play some of those games long before they ever came out. Which was absolutely amazing back then, because that's back when your only source of information was like Game Informer and newsletters and shit like that. And I was testing Tiberium Sun 9 months before it was getting ready to come out. And Loster's absolutely right. CNC is still to this day one of those games you can go back to and sink hours into. No problem. I mean, the one night, me and you sat there for, what was it, probably 4 or 5 hours
like
the
4
one
hours.
night playing?
We played, was that, Open RA, which is a fan-made, like, from the ground up in a new engine. They recreated Red Alert. And we were doing skirmishes, and then we jumped over to Red Alert 3, I think. And we were doing skirmishes in Red Alert 3.
Yeah, and it's still one of those games that I'll fire up every so often and go into skirmishes, and I am in no way at the fucking skill I was at one point. We used to fucking like make bets on how long it would take, to do 1-on-7 extreme, or whatever the fuck the hardest difficulty is. I don't even remember. Brutal. There we go. Yeah. But we do 1-on-7, because at the time 8-player maps was as big as you could get. Actually, I think it still is. But we would take bets on who would be able to win the quickest against 7 brutal enemies. So yeah, I've sunk a lot of hours into that game, which is why my intro music is now from Red Alert 2, which is arguably the greatest fucking RTS ever made, and all of you StarCraft fans can suck an alien dick.
Yeah, seriously, yeah, that was always a big thing. My friends were always super, oh dude, you gotta play StarCraft. Oh fucking, you gotta play Brood Wars. Fuck off. I was the only person that was like, fuck off. I got Red Alert 2. I got Tanya. What do you got? Oh, good, Rainer. Good for you. I got fucking Tanya. Lick my nuts.
Yeah, one of the questions in chat there, did I ever play the original Age of Empires? No, I never got into those style of RTSs where it was more of like the infrastructure and actually building your village and stuff like I just wanted to build an army and kill shit.
I didn't play AoE 1 either. AoE 2 is that's a whole other thing. But
yeah, I never played any of them. I actually think I have one of the Age of Empires right now, or no, I think I have Civ 5 or something. I don't know. Somebody fucking talked me into buying it, and I played like one game, and I was like, yeah, fuck this. It is way too much.
Well, yeah. The perfect game that like balances that, where it balances like your economy versus your economy, where you like have to make resources and all that shit, and combat, is probably Stronghold. Stronghold is probably it's either my second or third favorite RTS of all time. It's Red Alert 2, and then second is either AoE 2 or Stronghold, and then third is it's switches between either AoE 2 or Stronghold for second place.
Yeah, I was going to mention Stronghold. Stronghold Crusader I've spent a lot of time playing that. I still play it. Me and my brother still play Crusader. We actually fucking moved the entire living room and arrangement and shit around, so we had an Ethernet cable long enough to LAN our two computers together so we could fucking play Stronghold.
I used to do that with my dad. I used to play AoE2 with my dad on LAN. That was fun.
You know, and that's when it comes to, you know, stuff like that, like Stronghold and especially CNC, like it's it's one of those games that I'll always look back on with not necessarily rose-colored glasses because they were great games. They still are great games, um, but I don't think we'll ever see that again. I don't think we'll ever get Call of Duty or Call of Duty. God, I don't think we'll ever get CNC the way it was. Not just because of the fact that EA owns it and EA wants to fucking rape and pillage everybody's wallet. It's just that I guess that style of game isn't really you know what's there or what the masses are interested in.
Right. There's
I
no
know,
money in it.
yeah, I know StarCraft is still hugely popular, or I think StarCraft is still hugely popular.
It's still, yeah, not here, but over
Yeah,
there it
not
is.
here.
On in the Eastern world it is, but like in Korea, it's still huge. But yeah, it's not so much popular here anymore. That style of RTS has been completely like obliterated by MOBAs. Like there's no way around it. MOBA has completely
Yeah.
wiped out the RTS community almost.
Yeah, and I mean, there's still guys that do CNC. There's a guy Greenleaf, I think it was his YouTube channel. You know, he still does YouTube videos, or he was for quite a while. And there were some great videos to watch. He was doing, I think it was Red Alert 3 and Kane's Wrath and all of that stuff. You know, if you're a fan of CNC, definitely check out his channel. He's got some really good videos up there and some like competitive multiplayer and shit like that. And the way those guys move around the map and, you know, produce units and shit, like I never was and never could have been at that level. Like it's mind-boggling how they're able to do shit so quickly. Like I can't even think that fucking quick, let alone act
Yeah.
that quick.
Well,
Um
while we're on
and
the subject, I mean, I'm sure we both watched that same. I mean, I remember bringing it up to you. We both watched the same video, the rise and fall of Command and
oh yeah,
Conquer
yep.
from
And then
the
they
what was the
actually
channel
did,
Gamers.
yeah, they actually did a follow-up video to it with some more facts and stuff like that that was a
Yeah,
little longer. I don't know if you caught that one or not.
yeah, I did. They did a redux, yeah,
Yeah.
or redo, whatever. But yeah, that was one of the best videos I've ever seen on YouTube, and I remember following. I remember them announcing that they're going to make Generals 2, and I remember being so excited for them that
Mm-hmm.
they're going to make Generals 2 because CNC 4 was just so it was such a bad game. It was such a departure from what CNC
Yeah.
was that they were making Generals 2. I was really excited, and then they said, okay, it's gonna be like it's not gonna be Generals 2. It's gonna be like a free to play CNC game. I don't care. Just give me more Command and Conquer. I don't care at this point. And then they completely canceled it. And like that's it. That's the nail in the coffin right there.
Mm-hmm.
There's not going to be any more CNC. I heard though that some of the original devs from Westwood, there's a game called Grey Goo that came out that I think some of the original devs from that made CNC ended up making it, where it tries to hold on to that traditional RTS, but still puts like that modern twist on it, that contemporary twist on it. Um, like one of the races is literally like you're just like a blob of gray goo, and that's what you are. Like that's your building. That's your MCV. That's your mobile command thing, and that from that you produce more units off of this blob of gray goo, and you have to move around and take over the map. And then there's like a human race, and then there's like an alien race. But that's I think that's the last we've ever heard of them is that game. I'd have to look it up, but I'm pretty sure they're Westwood devs. The previous Westwood employees made that game.
Yeah, and I don't know. Like, obviously, being the original Westwood guys is a huge plus, but for me, I don't think I could get into it because it's not CNC. It's not those characters. It's not those units that we
Right.
know and love. You know, unless it says fucking Nod and GDI, it's like, yeah, what's the point? Or you know, unless it's Russians versus Americans and British and whatever. You know, it's just it's. I don't know. It's just it's not the same. And the sad thing is as you said, you know, the nail in the coffin already happened, and EA owns that IP. Westwood is gone. It has been gone for a long time now,
Yep.
and I don't think I don't see EA giving that up. You know, selling that IP ever. Uh, and I sure as shit don't see them putting the time into developing a legit successor to, you know, Red Alert 3 or, you know, anything like that, uh, because the market's not there for it. Although, uh, as with somebody had mentioned in chat, that esports are making games along those lines a lot more popular again. Uh, and esports is continuing to grow and is only going to get bigger. I mean, we're seeing $1 million competitions in huge stadiums and shit.
Oh yeah.
So, yeah, we could potentially see them try and, you know, cash in on that a little bit, but that's also my fear is that it's EA. We all know EA as a developer is a total fucking, or as a studio, whatever. They're a total piece of shit that only give a fuck about the dollar. So honestly, you know, being the fan that I am of CNC, I would love to see it come back. I would, you know, love to be able to see the guys from Westwood be able to come back and make a game. But under the umbrella of EA, I would rather it just die and just, you know, remain a good memory because I
Right.
don't want to see EA destroy it more than what they already fucking did. Because in the
Right.
short years that they had that they bought it, they fucking killed it. You know, I mean, CNC ran for years and years under Westwood and just continued to grow and grow and grow. And then EA bought it. And I mean, within a couple of years,
Like 2 games,
immediately
right?
took a shit. Yeah, 2 games. They
Red
killed
Alert
a fucking
3
franchise.
was okay.
Yeah, it
Um,
was all right. It was
well, I think
okay.
EA Red Alert 2 was under EA too, but Red Alert 2 was
Yeah,
already
but
like being
Westwood
developed.
was still in control
Yeah.
of everything at
Yeah.
that point. EA was just footing the bill at that point.
Right.
When they got to Red Alert 3, that's when EA started stepping in and said, "Hey, how can we make more money out of this?" And that's when guys from Westwood started leaving.
Right. That's one that's like, oh, here, online only. You have to be online all the time at Red Alert
Mhm.
3. And it's like, okay, well, I can get past that because the game wasn't that bad. But that whole emphasis on co-op, like that's all EA. That's all EA saying. Like EA has such a strong emphasis on multiplayer. How do we integrate multiple people into this so that multiple people will buy this game and play it together? How do we integrate as many people into this as we possibly can? And
I mean,
it's two
really, they
games,
already
man.
had that with the competitive multiplayer. I mean, CNC competitive was huge. Westwood's fucking servers back in the day, I mean, that was big stuff. The amount of servers that Westwood ran because they didn't allow, well, not that they didn't allow private servers, but they had their own servers, and that's what you played on competitively was Westwood servers, and that was huge. Like there was hundreds of servers that Westwood ran themselves. Like I still remember the day when the press release came out that Westwood was shutting down their studio or shutting down their servers. Like that was a sad day to read that news story that the Westwood servers were no more. Like I spent so many hours on those servers and to read that they were being shut down. They were no longer going to be supporting the game. And it's like, dude, like this is a part of my fucking life gone thanks to this dog shit company known as EA.
Yeah. And then the next game that came out was CNC4, and that was it. That was all. I played that game for like maybe an hour, I think.
Yeah, well then they had that mobile fucking game
Yep.
that is just
There's.
purely a cash grab.
Mhm.
Um, and Maverick asking why Westwood shut down. Simple. I mean, EA bought Westwood Studios, and
Rebranded
they
them as
yeah
as a EA West studio or EA whatever the fuck studio,
yeah,
and
and everybody left.
yeah, everybody quit. Like everyone quit, and then they made CNC4, which was a failure. And because when a game fails, developers don't give a fuck, or not developers really, publishers don't give a shit why it failed, the studio's getting fired, like,
Yeah.
or they're getting rebranded, or they're getting merged with another studio. Something's gonna happen. That happens with Ubisoft all the time.
Yeah, it's the same thing that just happened to Visceral. I mean, Visceral made some of the best games we've seen in the last decade, and they shut them down because the last game didn't do so great. So they're like, all right, well, we're going to close you up and send you over here.
Right. The company that brought us like Dead Space, like the best, one of the best contemporary like survival horror slash action horror
Mm-hmm.
games, like in the past decade. Yeah, fuck them. This one game flopped. EA, it's just EA and their fucking nonsense. The bottom line is the bottom line. That's all they give a shit
But
about.
what we were actually talking about this earlier about EA specifically, and EA used to make what were some of my favorite games. Like I just because we were talking about like great years for games, and obviously mine are going to be a little bit farther back than some of you guys, but for me, EA used to be a great name to see on a game. Like when you seen Electronic Arts, I just happened to look up Road Rash earlier. That was one of my favorite games to play on Sega back in the day. And to see Electronic Arts on the box, like that was a cool thing to see. You knew that was going to be a good game. Same with Need for Speed back in the day. Um, and I spent a lot of time playing those. And we also talked a little bit about Sierra, some of the amazing fucking games that Sierra made. And the only developers I can think of right now that still have kind of that same mentality of it's the customer first, not the dollar, would have to be CD Projekt Red and BioWare to a point. And that's really the only ones I can think of that are like, yeah, we want our customers to have a good time, no matter how much work it is for us. We don't, care if we make $1 billion on this. We want the guys that play this game to continue playing it a decade later. And CD Projekt Red is definitely like number one in my book. Those guys, I've talked about them on the podcast before. When it comes to game developers and people that actually give a shit about their consumers, nobody can top CD Projekt Red. Like those guys are the fucking rock stars of game developers in my mind. And
Yeah, I mean, maybe some of the smaller developers I can think
well,
of.
yeah,
Like
I mean, yeah, as far as like the big companies.
Yeah, I'd have to say the same thing, I guess. Well, okay, this is kind of sacrilegious, and it's only one studio that's doing it, and it's part of Ubisoft. It's not Ubisoft as a whole because they don't give a fuck. But the studio that's behind Siege, honestly, is one of. If you look it up on YouTube, there's
Oh,
nothing
those
but
guys have been
positive
doing
feedback.
great things. Like,
Yes.
Siege had a lot of problems when it was first released, and they recognized that. A lot of people immediately jumped on the fucking hate wagon because it's a Ubisoft game. I understand that. But I don't even play the game, and I still appreciate what those guys are doing with their updates and content release and stuff like that. And yes, they have the premium thing where you get it before everybody else. That's fine. That's them trying to make a little bit of extra scratch on it. That's I understand that. But you still end up getting the content eventually, and they're constantly working on it and constantly updating it. And that's pretty cool in my book that they're still putting that much work into a game that everybody wrote off a fucking year and a half ago. Everybody said this game is dead, and it pretty much was. I mean, that game was dead, and they very quickly did a fucking 180. And now Siege is more popular probably than damn near it ever was, aside from when it launched.
It might be more popular than Counter Strike at this point. As far as concurrent players that are playing it all like at once, I think their numbers might be topping Counter Strike's. I'm not positive
That
on
would be
that, but I
impressive.
think it might be.
Yeah, that would definitely be impressive.
They're at like 2 million, I think, or something like that. But they had like a million. They've had like a million, over a million, on at the same time. I might be wrong, but I think they might be topping. They're either coming close
Well,
or
that's the thing.
topping.
Even if they're fucking close, like that's a huge accomplishment in comparison to where they were 3 months after launch. And Supa mentioned Mass Effect there. As I already said, one of my most loved series of games, and I said Mass Effect 1, 2, and 3. Notice I did not mention Andromeda. I have Andromeda. I ran all the way through it. And my problem wasn't that there was no Shepard. Like I'm fine with that, with it being a different protagonist. But the protagonist wasn't anywhere nearly as likable as Shepard. There wasn't that same story to it, and it didn't have that same feeling of, you're saving the whole of the fucking universe. Like the story to it didn't have near the same weight as the story you had with Shepard, which was a huge turnoff for me, because that's what BioWare games are about, is the fucking story. And the simple fact is, Mass Effect has been and always will be a fucking BioWare game. I don't care what fucking studio has it. That game belongs to BioWare. They created that universe. And for it to kind of go down the way it did with Andromeda and, die as weak as it did, made even the ending of Mass Effect 3 look like it was absolutely brilliant. And Dragon Age was much the same way. And not that Dragon Age ended badly. I'm one of those odd people that I'm actually a fan of Dragon Age 2. I've played it a lot. I'm also a fan of Dragon Age Inquisition. I played it a lot. I hated the fucking microtransaction bullshit in it. I'm not a fan of that in any way, shape, or fucking form. But it got so far away from where Dragon Age started. Like that. Again, the story with Dragon Age was just so amazing. You had, these different races that you could be with different backstories. But at the end of the day, you ended up in the same place fighting for the same thing, which was to stop the fucking, now I forget the fucking name of them, the fucking Dark whatever. You still ended up being a Grey Warden, and you felt like the entire world depended on you. And Inquisition didn't really, yeah, there we go, the Blight. Inquisition really didn't feel like that for me at all. In Lost Ark, did you play any of those? Any of the Dragon Age games?
No, any of those like action RPG kind of games. I never. It was never. I didn't grow up playing RPGs, so I didn't play them as an adult either. I never played like any of the Baldur's Gate games. I never played. Honestly,
You never did
I
D&D and stuff? God, you're
no,
fucking
no,
loser.
I didn't grow up on. I grew up
It,
on first person shooters. I grew up on Doom and
isn't it fucked up now where it's like, so you didn't grow up a nerd? Fucking loser.
I did, just not that kind of nerd. That's all.
Right. But yeah, well, what about Mass Effect? Did you get into those at all?
No, I played the first one on Xbox, um, and I didn't like it, to be honest with you. I did the first
You
level.
shut your whore
I did the
mouth.
I did the first mission, I guess, which is like on Mars or whatever planet you're
Yeah.
on. And then I got into my ship, and then I landed on some planet, and I drove around, and I on my space car, the Moon Rider car, whatever the
The
fuck that thing
Hammerhead.
is, the Hammerhead, and I crashed it, and I'm like, yeah, I'm done, I'm good. I don't want to play this anymore.
Well, that's the thing, because talking about developers and stuff and BioWare. I mean, when you think about it, it's like, dude, BioWare did Mass Effect, Dragon Age, and KOTOR. Like, three of the biggest story-driven RPGs we have ever fucking seen, ever. And then EA's like, yeah, we're gonna step in and make this better for you guys. Fucking what? What?
Same thing with SimCity.
Well, see, that's one I never got into, is The Sims.
I could
I
I could
couldn't.
talk about that's what I was doing while you were playing D&D. I was playing The Sims and SimCity 2000 and SimCity 3,
Yeah,
and
I never got into those.
watching EA murder SimCity was as bad as watching Westwood close their online servers. It was a shot to the heart, and I almost cried.
And yes, it would definitely Dragon Age Origins, and also the expansion for that, back when they still did, expansions, not, what it's now called DLC, uh, which was Dragon Age Awakening. Basically a whole nother fucking game. And that's, something we were talking about with CNC and all the expansions for that. Uh, I fucking miss expansions. Like for us growing up, like expansions weren't DLC that you drop 15 bucks on and you got a new t-shirt. For us, an expansion, you dropped fucking 20 bucks and you got a whole nother game. Like
Yep.
CNC Covert Ops was a whole nother Command and Conquer game.
It was like
You know,
20 extra missions.
yeah, Firestorm was a whole nother fucking game. It wasn't just, oh, here's an extra mission. No, you got a whole nother game. And that's one of the reasons I love CD Projekt Red. Because they came out with true fucking expansions. Stoneheart or whatever it was it was okay. Like it was absolutely worth the money. But Blood and Wine, fucking Christ, was that good. I probably spent 20 to 30 hours just in the area you go to for Blood and Wine. You can't say that about any other game DLC that I can think of, anyways. Like, I can't think of any other game DLC
Fallout still does
recently.
that. Fallout 3
Well,
had that.
yeah, and then, Fallout 4 had Far Harbor or whatever, but I never checked it out because I wasn't impressed in the slightest with Fallout 4. So,
Yeah, it was
there's
like,
that.
that's another game. Just to point back to another subject that we were on about graphics isn't everything, because Fallout 3 is fucking ugly.
Oh, yeah.
It not even back then it wasn't pretty, and
No,
like
not at all.
people love those games. I'm not a big Fallout fan. I get bored like 10 hours in. I'll just get bored, and those games are fucking hideous,
I
and
I
people love them.
enjoy them, and I was definitely one of those people that was hyped for Fallout 4. I was all about it. I bought it as soon as it fucking came out, and that was another one that the story just let me down. Like I did not give a flying fuck about anything that was going on in Fallout 4. Like the opening of it, fucking amazing. Getting to see the nukes drop and go down in the fucking vault and everything, like that was super fucking cool. Everything after that point, I was just like, yep, I don't give a fuck. It took way too long to get to the punchline, if you will. Like when it started and you're in cryo, you see your fucking wife get killed and your kid get taken and stuff. I was like, fucking right on, let's go do this. And then
Yeah,
they're
and
like,
then immediately,
go to
so,
Concord and fucking get a suit and help these fucking retards in hats. Like,
yeah,
what?
as soon as you step out of the vault, hey, these people need help over here. Oh, hey,
Yeah,
why don't you spend the next 7 hours building a colony?
yeah, and it's like,
Don't worry about your
uh,
kid though.
son, no,
No,
okay.
baby.
Tomorrow? No. Next week? No. Oh, the fucking
Uh,
Brothers of Steel need fucking help.
yeah, they need help.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh, they got
what the
the
fuck?
railroad, the underground railroad, wherever the fuck they are. They need
Yeah.
help now. Oh well.
It's like, yeah, let me go help out fucking Harriet Tubman while my son fucking sits wherever the hell he's at. Yeah, I was not impressed with Fallout 4 in any way. Um and it's kind of shitty to think that, you know, I don't I don't know if we're going to continue to see games that are really story driven like what BioWare has produced. I know there's definitely some indie games out there that are very story driven like that. Um I personally haven't played them. I don't really play many indie games just because I don't and majority of the time I just don't have time to fucking, okay, I'm gonna play this $15 game for a couple of hours. Is it worth my money? Yes, no, maybe. I don't really want to drop the money to fucking waste 3 hours to find out it's actually dog shit. Um, as to where, back in the day when they're like, hey, fucking, here's an expansion for Dragon Age. I'm like, fucking sold. You got another copy just in case I fucking burn out this one? Um, but I think the days of those great story driven games might be gone, honestly. What do you think?
Yeah, maybe. One of the biggest games that are going to be coming up soon, Tarkov. Like, it has a story, but it's not a story. It's not a single player game. There's no story, like, so to speak.
Hmm.
The story's already been told. Now you're just, you
Yeah,
know,
and that's the thing is like I want to know how the fuck we got to that point that we're
Yeah,
in like this post-apocalyptic fucking area and we're PMCs fighting each other and shit. Like, how did we get there, motherfucker? Like,
yeah.
yeah, it's cool. We've already done this before. It was called Stalker fucking 20 years ago. How did we get to that point? Um, and that was actually another one, not Stalker, but the Metro series. Metro series was a great
Oh yeah.
action game that was very story driven. You know, any of you guys that have followed the channel for a long time may or may not know I tried to do a playthrough of it a long while back with the remastered, and for some reason it just ran like shit. Like I would only get like 4 or 5 frames out of it when I was trying to stream it, which was weird. But I loved that series, to know that they're doing another one right now that I think comes out like quarter 3 or maybe quarter 4 this year. I'm looking forward to that. That is definitely a game that I'm looking forward to playing through, uh, because it is so story driven. Um, but you know, like was mentioned there with EA shutting down the Star Wars game, the single player part, and then they give us supposedly a single player campaign with Battlefront 2. I don't know, I haven't seen it, obviously I haven't played it, but I'm sure it's, you know, basically fucking Call of Duty where it's like a 4 hour campaign and it's like, oop, there you go, you're
Yeah, here's
done.
your story.
Yeah. Uh but yeah, I mean the guys, you know, from Witcher, CD Projekt Red, like they're really the only ones I can think of that are doing really story driven shit aside from uh Metro 20 or fucking Cyberpunk 2077 or whatever, and we still know little to fucking nothing about that game.
Well, there's a point to be made. I think that I hear it come up a lot, and I think this is kind of a subject. I mean, this might be a subjective thing, but one of the points that I hear a lot. One of the examples is when Siege came out. For some reason, man, even if people don't even play them, there's this big fucking demand for single player content. Like that seems to justify a game's price tag. That because Siege didn't have a single player story, that it's not worth $60. And I remember thinking like that it doesn't. I don't agree with that. Like I don't think that. Like yes, I think there is a tried and true method of making games that goes back a long time, where you make a single, like you have a group of people that are making the single player story, then you have a group of people that are making the multiplayer, and then those two combine, and that's the game that you get. Like in Call of Duty, like the first Call of Duty,
Mm-hmm.
the team that made the single player campaign isn't the same team that made
Right.
multiplayer content. You know, I mean they were working side by side, but they were
Yeah,
still
but it
separate
was
teams.
different people.
Um, when you have all of your resources dedicated to one thing, hold on just a second. Let's talk about something else for a second, bro.
Well, and that's, you know, Supa mentions Bethesda, you know, still doing single player, and absolutely Bethesda is one of those groups out there, um, that I think it was with Wolfenstein because there was the big hoopla about single player games right around that time when Wolfenstein 2 came out, the new Colossus or whatever, and Bethesda flat out said, "We will never stop making single player content. We will always do a campaign for whatever game we're doing." And I mean I love that standpoint. I'm a big supporter of that, and you know them coming out and saying whether you know it makes us huge money or not, we're still going to add that single player content. I like that. My only problem is their single player content as of late has been shit. Uh, and there's no other word for it. I mean, I played Wolfenstein 2 and it was fucking horrible. Like the story, granted the story's not supposed to make sense, but I'm sorry, we go into a fucking submarine that, yes, admittedly is big, but if
I know
you've
what you're
been
about
on
to
this
say.
submarine for fucking months and now suddenly there's like 40 fucking Nazis somewhere hiding along the fucking bows, along the bow of this fucking submarine, and you guys couldn't find it because it was behind a fucking locker that a dude moved with one hand. Like, fuck off. That's not intelligent story writing. That's not even fucking, like, worthy of medically retarded story writing. Like, that's just fucking, here, throw some words on a page and see what fucking sticks. Like, no. I appreciate you trying to give me single player content, but at least, you know, have the fucking respect to not think of me as a window licker. Fuck off.
my my point, I guess the point that I was gonna make was that uh, basically multiplayer has always been something that exists to increase the longevity of a game. Like you have your campaigns 10, 20, 30, however many hours it is, or in the case of fucking like I don't know, like one of the Call of Duty games, 4 hours, whatever.
Yeah.
But the multiplayer has always been put in place to increase, to make you play the game longer, to keep
Yeah,
the
to
game alive.
increase the longevity.
Sure. But I think I'm of the opinion that if a game is like okay, fine, but what about games that are only single player? And say, for example, what Dead Space 2 is single player only, and the campaign isn't that long. The story is only, you could beat the game in like 8 hours, I think, or maybe 10, something like that. Like, does that justify the same price tag as like Call of Duty 4? You know what I mean? Like, what is it that makes that worth just as much money as the other game? And I think it comes down to quality. Is that I feel just as satisfied playing Dead Space 2 for 8 hours as I did playing Call of Duty 4 for 50 hours because of the
Right.
multiplayer. Same thing with Siege. That I've put I think 130 hours into Siege. Well, I don't know, maybe 200 hours, something like that, some stupid number. And like that's double. That's double, triple, five, 6 times as much as long as any single player story is going to be. So I don't really think that that is relevant. I think that if a game is gonna, I don't think there are, I don't think having a single, having a single player is mandatory for the sake of having it.
Oh
Why
no.
tack that on when it could be subpar or
Yeah,
shitty?
if it's not there from the onset, like if they didn't go into it saying we want this single player content like what, Bethesda has done, then no, it doesn't need to be there. And me personally, like I never had a problem with Siege not having single player content. Even the bullshit with the bots and, killing those guys, I guess being considered single player, like I didn't give a shit about that. Like being a $60 game, I'm fine with that. I'm one of those odd people that thinks $60 isn't enough for most games, which is why we end up, well, not the sole reason we end up with the fucking microtransaction bullshit, because let's face it, motherfuckers are greedy. But, I'm fine with them charging more for games. But like you were saying, the enjoyment value, I have a couple thousand hours into ArmA. I've, to me, I'm just as fine paying the same $60 that I paid for ArmA for, something like Mass Effect 3 that, at this point, yeah, I've probably played 100 plus hours because I've played through it multiple times. But, you know, it's a 20th of the amount of time that I have into ArmA in some games. I'm just as fine paying that $60 with it because that enjoyment was worth it in my mind. And the same goes, I had said that I enjoyed playing The Division. Like, that game got a lot of bad rap, justifiably, but it's also, yeah, it was $60. I spend more than $60 a month on fucking Monster, let alone, a game that's going to give me a couple of weeks of, absolute tears running down my face, laughter because of the fun that I was having with my buddies. That to me, yeah, I'll drop $60 on that. Um, and do I like multiplayer campaigns? Absolutely. To I come from the days where every game was fucking co-op. Like if the game had multiplayer, you had co-op. I come from the days of Contra and fucking Mario Brothers and shit. So co-op was all there was back in the day until you got started getting into like fucking Mortal Kombat and shit, and then you could actually start fighting each other, and then obviously into like GoldenEye and stuff like that. But yes, I absolutely
GoldenEye.
love multiplayer campaigns. I think every single fucking game that has a campaign, they should do their damnedest to try and make it co-op. Like that would help sales alone to be able to add co-op. I mean, look at Divinity, Original Sin 2. Game was made very cheaply. It was one of the most well-received games of the year because of the story, the gameplay, the fact that the entire fucking campaign was drop in, drop out co-op. Like, everybody I know that played that game loved Divinity Original Sin 2. And a big part of that is co-op. Like, people forget that just because we're not at fucking LAN parties anymore and we don't have 10 computers hooked up in our fucking basement to play Quake, doesn't mean that we don't want to fucking interact, with the people. We don't always want to fight against the people. Like, we still like playing together with each other, accomplishing a goal together. It's just, and this is something that like me and Drum have talked about a lot. Like, I can't stand games where, like fucking Call of Duty. Why in the fuck isn't Call of Duty's campaign co-op? Why? There is no reason that one of those fucking retarded ass NPCs that are running around with you can't be one of your buddies.
Right.
It makes no sense.
Right.
And exactly
it takes 10 minutes to just add player.
Yeah. And
here.
Just like Kinkaju, said there in chat, co-op is why I loved Halo. Absolutely. Like, I played Halo competitively for a while, but the co-op is still what got me into it. Like, I will forever remember the first time going and fighting the Flood with my brother, because that's the first time you get to use the shotgun. I will, till the day I die, I will remember playing that on Xbox, going through and fighting the Flood through those little gray fucking corridors, rocking a fucking shotgun basically back to back with my brother in Halo. Like, that's one of my favorite gaming experiences ever. That the entire campaign was co-op. And I don't understand why they don't do that more. It doesn't make any sense to me. And that's why I was so excited for the Skyrim, the Skyrim Together mod, where you could play Skyrim with 3 or 4 whatever of your buddies. Like, that's fucking huge. Like I said, I wasn't that impressed with Skyrim, but if I could play it with fucking 4 of my buddies, absolutely, I'd be playing the fuck out of that game. But, I mean, what do you think, Lusty? Do you think fucking co-op should be more prevalent in games, or do you think they should, continue pushing just the multiplayer aspect of it? Because for those of you guys that don't understand what I mean, for me, co-op and multiplayer are two very different fucking things.
Yeah.
Multiplayer means you're trying to kill each other. You're fighting against each other. Co-op means you're working together. Two very different fucking things in my mind. So what do you think, Luster? Would you like to see more of the co-op, kind of like the Division and Wildlands and stuff?
Oh yeah. I don't know how I don't know how active your wife is in the video game world, but my wife likes to play video games a lot, and I can't tell you how many times I've fucking just sat there. Now this just doesn't apply to PC, but it also applies to consoles as well. How many times I've just sat there with her, like, I don't know what the fuck we're gonna play because none of these fucking games are co-op. Like, you want to play Left 4 Dead again? She's like, no.
Right.
Okay. Do you want to play Borderlands again? No, not really. Okay. I don't know what the fuck we're gonna play then. I don't know. I wish. Now I will say this: the only company that seems to give a shit about like co-op and like I guess there's two ways you can look at it: online co-op and what we like to call couch co-op, which when you're
Yeah, couch co-op
TV.
is pretty much dead with exception to Nintendo. Yeah.
Yeah, Nintendo's the only company that's really keeping that alive. But honestly, I would love more co-op games. I would love more games like Contra or Metal Slug or not necessarily 2D side scrollers, but like
Yeah, I get what you're saying though.
even Tropico 5 is fucking co-op, and that's a fucking city builder game where you're a dictator trying not to get overthrown.
Aaron mentions Diablo, definitely Diablo 3.
Yeah.
I've spent probably a couple thousand hours in.
Yeah, that's one. My wife. That's one of the games that my wife.
And that's a lot of people label Diablo as an MMO, and while it is because you can be partied with just random people, I personally never seen it as an MMO because at one point there's only ever 3 other people in your party at any point in time, and you're not running around out there in an open world. It's just, to me, it's not an MMO. But I think one of the things you were getting at is for the people that still actually give a shit about co-op, and I would have to agree, is Ubisoft. I mean, they're still doing co-op games. I
Oh
mentioned
yeah,
two of them,
dude.
Division and Wildlands. While they're very much so the same fucking game, just in different settings, they are still co-op. Like they do still recognize that, hey, I want to get with three of my buddies and be able to play through a game together.
Yep.
So I have to kind of, proverbially take my hat off to them for doing that.
Even Siege has it, the T hunts and everything. That's been but that's been a staple of Rainbow Six for forever. Is terrorist
Well, yeah,
hunts.
every fucking Rainbow has had that. And music says Far Cry 5 is co-op. Really? I haven't seen anything about that.
I couldn't be less interested in Far Cry 5. Did you
Really?
see the Did you see
See,
the thing for it? The like the gameplay trailer for it.
the only gameplay I've seen of it was fucking uh from Neebs Gaming. Duralius, one of the guys from Neebs Gaming, has done a couple
Yeah.
videos from a capture event that he was at. That's the
The
only thing I've seen of it.
the official like you're allowed to touch it and play it reveal was like I think IGN did a video on it, and it's like, oh, here you got like a dog, and he like six this. It's the same thing. It's the same fucking thing, which is to be expected because it's it's Ubisoft, but it's the same. It's basically Far Cry 4, but now it's in the United States. Oh
Mm-hmm.
shit.
As Loster's phone decides to go off. I don't. I think Far Cry 4 was co-op. I'm not
Oh my god.
positive. I never actually played through Far Cry 4. I just for whatever reason I couldn't get into it like I did 3. Maybe it was because some guy wasn't telling me the definition of crazy. But I couldn't get through it. Far Cry 5 I am looking forward to. Granted, the story really doesn't make sense to me, how these heavily armed guys are in the US and the National Guard isn't there kicking in somebody's teeth. It doesn't make any sense. But, I'll suspension of disbelief for a minute there. But oh, okay, you can't do story missions. Okay, well, then I wouldn't have been interested in it anyways, because what the fuck's the point? Um, and as far as the Wildlands co-op from 1 to 10, the co-op itself, absolutely a 10. Probably a fucking 11. Like, the co-op is great. Working together, splitting off in buddy teams, hitting objectives from different angles, having somebody up on Overwatch, shit like that. Like, Wildlands was fucking amazing for that. What, for me, and, for Drum and the rest of the guys, what killed Wildlands for us and why we just pushed through it and got it over as quickly as we could there towards the end was just the bugs in the game and how broken the game itself was. A big part for me wasn't necessarily the gameplay itself. It was the shortcomings of the weapons and how they handled, how they worked. The bullet drop is something that a lot of people talked about, and I did too in my streams. Like, the bullet drop was just fucking atrocious. It's something that even by the end of it, I still hadn't gotten used to, because I could clearly see, based on knowledge, that this guy is 200-300 meters away, and I'd fire at him with a fucking 416, and the bullet would drop 2.5 feet between me and him. And it's like, dude, this is a fucking rifle that is lethal fucking beyond 500 meters. And it's hitting the fucking dirt at his feet at 250. I couldn't get over that. I remember seeing videos that were popular because they're like the longest shot in Wildlands, and it was like 1,500 meters or some shit. It's like, dude, the most boot fuck motherfucker with an M4 can make a shot at 1,000 yards with modern optics. Like, that shouldn't be impressive, is my point. Like, 1,500 meters shouldn't be like, oh my god, that's fucking insane, you made a 1,500 meter shot in Wildlands. Like, no, you should be like, holy fuck, you made a 2,700 meter shot in Wildlands. That's beyond the fucking current world record. Like, that should be impressive. Actually, I think the current world record is like 2,750 or some shit. But that, it killed the game. That, along with the other bugs and shit that we had to deal with. And it could definitely, it's all stuff that could be fixed. And why that went through, why that wasn't fixed in the first place, is what I don't understand. because you know, for stuff like that, like they have to have people that come in and give them the specs on the weapon systems, the rates of fire, caliber, all of that stuff. They have to get those specs from somewhere. How did they not also go over bullet velocity, muzzle velocities, drop, all of that? How did they not go over that? And if they did, who was the fucking sad sack that said, oh yeah, at 1,000 meters, a fucking 338 Lapua round is going to drop 6.5 feet? Like, that's one of the things I hate about game development is, for whatever reason, they're so what's the word I'm looking for? They're so stubborn to making things realistic, and it fucks people up that are used to, not necessarily used to realistic, but at least have a modicum of fucking knowledge on the subject. And it's like, what the fuck is going on here? I can't get used to this. I can't bridge that gap because it's so far from the real world, from what's supposed to happen. It completely ruins the game for me. And yeah, exactly. You'd be lucky to hit a fucking 5-meter shot. And like I said, it's all stuff that could be fixed. And for all I know, it's stuff that has been fixed. I haven't played Wildlands since the day we completed the campaign. The day we completed the campaign, I shut it off and uninstalled it. I haven't played it again. I was tempted to when the Predator Challenge or whatever came out, just so I could go out and do my best Hutch. My best Dutch. But I didn't, because I was like, well, I already have a 203, and unless they're going to give me a Vulcan minigun, I don't really care. Which I never did find out if that's one of the guns that they added was the, handheld Vulcan. I have no idea if that's one of the guns they added or not. Well, you mentioned that they don't want realism, they want the illusion of realism. But to me, I think that's one of the things, I mean, at least for me, that's one of the things that detaches me from the game and doesn't let me really get into it. Like, obviously, like, stuff like Mass Effect and shit like that, you have suspension of disbelief there because it's thousands of years into the fucking future. Same thing with, like, Star Wars and stuff like that, and why a laser is traveling slower than a fucking bullet would. That kind of stuff I can deal with. But when you're using real-world weapons that are currently out, it's not from the future, it's shit that is currently being used, stuff that I have carried, stuff that I have fired. Like, yeah, I can't get behind that because it's just so fucked up. But I don't understand the thought process behind that, of why it's like, well, we know this rifle is capable of, dropping a target at, 700 meters, but we're going to make it so you're lucky if you drop a target at 250. Why? Like, what sense does that make? What does that add to the game?
Well,
I don't know anything.
I don't know what the developers are, like, what this fascination is with making shotguns basically Nerf guns at, like, more than 10 feet.
Yeah. I've never understood. Well, the thing that's fucked up is because, you mentioned Doom a while ago and being one of your favorites. Like, the shotgun was the fucking gun to have. Until you got, like, the plasma and shit like that, obviously.
Sure.
And I mentioned the shotgun in Halo, because the shotgun in Halo was fucking amazing. But that's kind of where, I'm not going to say where it started, but that's where I started noticing it, was Halo, where you had to be fucking 5 feet away from something to do any real damage with it. And I'm sitting there thinking, like, are these motherfuckers using birdshot, or what's going on? Like, I've shot shotguns my entire life. The first gun I ever fired was a 12-gauge shotgun when I was like 5 years old. Yes, my dad won a $20 bet for that. He's welcome, fucker. His bet was that I wouldn't drop it, and I didn't. But I've never fired a shotgun that has a spread anything like what they have in any game I've ever played. Even ArmA has a much larger spread at 15 meters than what I've ever seen a shotgun have. I don't give a fuck if you're firing double op buck or 8BB, whatever. I've never seen a shotgun with a spread of like 2-3 meters at a 30-foot distance. Never. With birdshot, yeah, because birdshot, you're talking about BBs, you know, the size of what goes in a fucking BB gun. But with buckshot, you know, something the size of a small fucking marble flying out of there, no, I've never seen a spread like that. Even on short barrel shotguns, you know, and I'm talking like super shorty Cerbus and shit like that. They don't have a spread like that. And slugs, I mean, slugs are fucking useless. You know, in video games, what few video games you can actually put slugs into a shotgun, you might as well just fucking throw a 15-ton brick at them because it's going to drop about 3 feet out of the end of that barrel, which is absolutely ridiculous. Like, I've personally watched someone drop a deer at 75 yards with a 12-gauge slug. Like, you're still plenty accurate out to 100 yards with a 12-gauge with a slug in it. Yeah, granted, you need a longer barrel and shit, but still, it doesn't... They've never gotten shotguns right. I've never seen a game that can get a shotgun right. And I don't know why, because shotguns are always like that. They're always that powerful close-in weapon, and I understand that, but it's still the fact, like, stop trying to make shotguns OP and just make them fucking realistic so they can actually be useful. Like, shotguns are used in combat, dumb fuck. Like, there's a reason Mossberg 500 tacticals and Remy 870 tacticals exist, because they actually use them in combat. The game version of shotguns, I wouldn't use in combat aside from very close quarters, which is why in ArmA, the only time you'll see me rocking the fucking shotgun is when I'm about to go into a building. When I come out of the building, I generally try and swap it out as quickly as I can, because it's just, you're not going to fucking do anything with it. And slugs and Tarkov are awesome. That I wouldn't know, because I still
they're okay.
yet to fucking play it. You can kind
of snipe with them. The only problem with shotguns in Tarkov, I will say that shotguns in Tarkov feel pretty damn good. You can do considerable damage, like up to like 50 plus meters, but when someone's wearing body armor, you might as well be just fucking shooting BBs at them, because it doesn't, for some reason, I think it's like not, it's a coding issue, it's a balance issue in the game, because I've shot people point blank in the chest with a fucking shotgun, and because they had body armor on,
it just doesn't do anything.
I might as well have just like hit them with a fucking slipper.
Yeah,
because they don't even flinch.
Like, maybe that it's going too much to the realistic side, because we don't even have it in ArmA, where, you know, if you get hit in the rifle plate, it fucking drops you to the ground. But if Tarkov is trying to be that hyper realistic, I think maybe they should have that if you get hit in the rifle plate, like, it kind of like stuns you or slows your movement, or, you know, does something to your stamina or some shit, you know, if you get hit in the plate.
Yeah, it does. Like, if you get hit in the armor, you do like flinch, but the problem is that there's really no difference between getting shot from 2 feet away and getting shot from 100 feet away. Like, you still flinch the same. When if I shot you point blank range, you would do more than just flinch. I'd probably break a rib, and you'd probably be semi-incapacitated.
Yeah, and that's, you know, that like, I think I mentioned it on a podcast before, but that's something, one of the times that Myers was Zeusing, he was controlling an AI, and I rounded a corner, and I didn't realize that I still had the thumper selected, and I just fucking real quick hit the trigger to lace him with the M4 real quick, and I hit him square in the fucking chest with a 40 mic, but he was too close for it to arm, so it didn't blow up, which was good, because it would have fucking fucked me up too. But we were talking about it afterwards, and I was like, dude, if that was in any way a realistic scenario, you would have been fucking laying on your ass, fucking trying to catch your breath. You get hit square in the fucking chest with a 40 mic from like 15 feet away. Like, I don't give a fuck if you're wearing a plate or not. That would have planted you in the fucking dirt. Uh, and I've never seen a game do that where it simulates hits to a rifle plate and it actually having an effect on you. And like I said, I don't know if I would. That may be a little ultra realistic, a little too much. But I've never seen a game do it. Have you?
Max Payne 3.
Max Payne 3.
When you shoot their body armor, you actually visually see the round like impact and kind of just bounce off of it. Like the round will shatter, or it'll do what it'll compress, and it'll actually like they'll flinch from it.
Oh, nice. Okay.
And you're generally using small caliber rounds, so you can nail a fucking tac vest, whatever. You can nail whatever the fuck Kevlar or whatever they're using, with like an MP5 or a 9mm multiple times, and they'll flinch multiple times. You'll feel like you're shooting a Terminator, but the reality is that those are pretty much designed for small caliber rounds, like police
that's
and
what
civilian.
they're made for. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, Max Payne 3 has that. The mission when you're in the police station, most of the bad guys, most of you're killing cops, but most of them have body armor on, and you'll see it. You have to aim for the arms or the head.
Oh, okay. And as far as if you can refer to my shotgun as the motivator moving forward, no, because I shopped at S-Mart, so it is known as the boomstick.
Shop S-Mart.
Shop smart, shop S-Mart. And if you don't know where that reference is from, I pity you.
You're a baby. You're a little kid.
Which I never watched the fucking show. I know I should have.
Season 1, you can like.
I know there's like a spin-off of it now with fucking what's his nuts, which the guy in the spin-off, I love that dude as an actor, but obviously Ash is where it's at. Especially considering Bruce Campbell's from Michigan, so fuck all of you.
Yeah. Season 2. He's from Dearborn, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Season 2 is so fucking it was great. Season 2 is like the definition of fan service. It's such a good fucking season.
Yeah. So, as we go on a fucking tirade about Evil Dead and chainsaws for arms and
what was I saying earlier about I rambled too much?
Did they ever make a Evil Dead game? They had to have, right?
Oh yeah, there's tons of them.
I've never seen them.
None of them. Okay, so I had an Evil Dead game for Xbox where it was like a third person, like hack and slash kind of thing, where like Ash goes back to
Michigan isn't that part of Canada? No, Michigan is Canada light. Thank you. Please continue. We're like Diet Canada, all right?
The two that I can think of is that there was a Dreamcast Evil Dead game, which was, it was like a survival horror, like Resident Evil kind of game. But the combat was like Devil May Cry.
It was more like the original Evil Dead, not Evil Dead 2. That was more the campy comedy type.
Well, no, it was Evil Dead 2. It was based on Evil Dead 2, but all the games you see are based on Evil Dead 2, and the reason for that is because Sam Raimi didn't actually own the rights to Evil Dead. So they couldn't do anything with that. They had to remake. That's why they made Evil Dead 2, because they couldn't do anything with Evil Dead. So anything that you see is based off of either Evil Dead 2 or Army of Darkness. But the one that was on Dreamcast was kind of like Resident Evil. It was in that same vein of pre-rendered backgrounds and Ash walks around in them. It was like Resident Evil meets Alone in the Dark. The combat was very like Alone in the Dark, where like you have like your chainsaw and you're getting attacked by ghosts and shit like that and deadites.
You mentioned it, not to cut you off, but I'm going to anyways because it's my show. Fuck off.
Sure.
But you mentioned Resident Evil, and that was another game that was great for co-op. I personally never got into Resident Evil because of the fucking retarded ass you have to stop to shoot thing, and the shitty camera. But it had co-op, or at least a couple of them had co-op,
and 6 had co-op.
Did 4 not have co-op? I thought 4 had co-op as well.
No, 4, it had a Leon story and an Ada story, but there was no co-op.
Which one was it that was on GameCube? Was 5 on GameCube?
Was 0.
Because I remember playing one co-op on GameCube,
That was
back in the
0.
day. Okay.
0 was also third. It was like it had the traditional camera angles where you
Yeah.
Rebecca,
I just
and then
remember I
you got other
hated to have to
guys.
stop and fucking shoot. I'm like, I don't even have tactical fucking training, and I can shoot a pistol while I'm slowly walking. It's not that hard.
You can do that in you can do that in the remake, the HD remake. You can move.
And that's, you mentioned Dreamcast. Now, that was another system I played. I didn't have a Dreamcast, but that was the first console to have online multiplayer that I can remember, that I can think of.
The
Dreamcast was the
the
first one.
prior to that, because that was before the PS2 came out.
Mm-hmm.
I think I might be wrong, but I think the Sega Saturn might have had a modem.
Oh yeah, sorry, it was the Sega Saturn. It wasn't the Dreamcast.
And then I think prior to that, maybe the 3DO, because the 3DO was disc based, I think, and it might have
Maybe.
had online capability, or
See,
the
this is when we show our age, when
yeah,
we're talking about old systems and shit.
maybe
Most
but
of the
it
guys
might be the
watching are
Sega
like, "What
Saturn.
the fuck are you guys talking about? Is that like the fucking Game Boy's grandfather?" And no, the Game Boy's grandfather came with a gray controller
DS,
and
basically.
no, it came with a gray controller and an orange barrel. Yes, that's right. I had fucking light guns, motherfucker. Actually, I had a badass light gun back in the day for the Sega. It was huge. I mean, like, fuck, it was the size of an actual goddamn rifle. And I remember using it for the Terminator game. And I think we've talked about that before. The Terminator side scroller. Yeah.
Yeah.
That game was fucking amazing.
Or T2,
man.
it was called.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, God, the days of the fucking arcade games, man, like Time Cop and our Time Crisis and House of the Dead and shit like that. Like,
Sure.
I don't even know.
Area 51.
Yeah, Area 51, another great one. I'll always remember the whole. I don't know why. Maybe it was because of the the shit my dad had me do when I was a kid. But like, I remember being at the arcade. We had a local arcade here when I was younger, and me and my brother would go all the time. I mean, we'd take $20 and we'd be there for 12 fucking hours. But when I would play like Area 51 and stuff, you had to shoot off the screen to reload your gun.
Yeah.
But I guess it's just because of the shit my dad had us do. My weapon was never pointed at the screen unless I was shooting. My weapon was always aimed down, very much, low ready, exactly. Very much so what you actually see guys do. And then when a target came up, I'd raise my weapon and take my shot. And I remember guys at the arcade being like, "What the fuck are you doing? Why aren't you aiming?" And I'm like, "Well, one, my arm's gonna get fucking tired holding it out there like that. Two, there's no target. I have nothing to aim at." But yeah, for some reason that just always stuck with me. That's always how I played any of those games. Time Crisis, fucking Area 51, all of those. I always played, my weapon was at low ready until a target presented itself. And I mean, I'm talking like when I was like fucking 8, 9, 10 years old and shit. And like when those games were first coming out and shit, I would play it that way. And I didn't think anything of it because that's what I was taught to do. That's what I was trained to do with a weapon. Until I watched other guys that would just hold their hands out there the entire time, and I'm like, man, your guys' arms got to get fucking tired.
I'd be tired. I'd be tired at the end of it. Like House of the Dead 2, I'd be exhausted.
Yeah, and that's that's one of the things that we see. Not so much, well, especially not in my area. Actually, I think there's one like. Internet cafe is not the name for it anymore. I guess it hasn't been in like 20 years, but what the fuck do they call them now? Like the gaming centers that you can go to where they've got like 50 fucking computers hooked up. I don't even know what the fuck they're called. For me, it's an internet cafe.
Yeah, we used to have one in Buffalo, Cyberjocks. I don't know. Like
LAN cafes? Yeah, I guess that would be
it. I don't know.
That's back in my day, you went to the fucking internet cafe to use the fucking internet because you didn't have internet at home because you didn't even own a fucking computer. But like I don't. I guess
Land
those.
center, a land arena.
Yeah, maybe. I did see that they're opening an esports arena in Vegas now, which is pretty fucking cool. Um, but what I was getting at is, I guess those are the modern day arcades, right? Like arcades are gone.
There's
They're done.
pretty
Uh,
much there's you'll occasionally you'll see a cabinet
yeah,
somewhere,
there's
like
some
bowling
here or
alleys and
there.
bars.
Um, like there's still one here. Well, I say at the local mall. It's like an hour and a half away. But there's still like a 3-level arcade inside the mall. That's really cool. You know, you buy one of the cards, put money on it, and whatever.
Yeah, Dave and Buster's
Um,
has one.
yeah, Dave
Dave
and
and
Buster's
Buster's
has their
has
arcade,
arcades,
but you know that's a restaurant. It's not an arcade. It's a
right?
restaurant. Uh, but I don't. The local place here, AFE, uh, they shut down probably shit 10, 15 years ago. That place closed, and there was another one even older than that, Aladdin's Castle, back in the day. That's where I went when I was a real young kid. Um, and that's probably been closed for 20 plus years. Uh, but I can't remember the last time, aside from that place in the mall, that I seen a legit arcade. You know, like fucking like Flynn's. And if you
Yeah.
don't know what Flynn's is, again, I pity you.
There's an arcade in there's a museum in Rochester, the Strong Museum, and they have a it's historical, but it's still a functional arcade.
Hmm.
It's 2 stories, and it's just full of cabinets, and it's full of cabinets, from all the way back to like there's Pong cabinets in there, and you go forward to like Donkey Kong, and you go even forward further to like to the light games and shit like that. So I mean, it's a fully functional arcade, but it's in a museum, so it's like for historical purposes. The last arcade I ever saw was in the mall in Buffalo in the Galleria, and right next to it was a Games Workshop. So I'd play. My dad would give me $5, which
The
is 20
Galleria.
quarters. Yeah, so that whenever he Terminator 2,
Yeah.
whenever the girl was like, I think he was going to the Galleria, and then Robert Patrick's like, the Galleria. I'm like, does he
Yeah.
mean this
You
one?
said
But
you
no,
said
he was
Galleria, and that's instantly what I thought of. On top of the
yeah,
fact that I was already thinking about the fact, like when he goes into the arcade and John Connor's in Afterburner, I
yeah.
remember playing that game. Like
I think
I was around for that. I remember my dad dragging me out of that game, and the reason I loved it so much is, most of you probably aren't old enough to fucking remember, but in Afterburner you flew an F-14 Tomcat, and F-14 is what Maverick flew in Top Gun, which was my favorite movie ever growing up. So I was flat out addicted to that fucking game. So when I seen T2, and that came out in what, like fucking 92 or some shit, and seeing that he was in Afterburner, I was like, I play the same game as John Connor. And then it also popped up in a little known movie that some of you may or may not know, which was Suburban Commando, starring Hulk Hogan. He played. I think it was labeled as something else. It wasn't. It wasn't the whole motion rig. It was just the stand-up cabinet. But it was. It was Afterburner. Yeah. God, I haven't seen that movie in a long fucking time, dude. Suburban Commando. The Hulk Hogan, Christopher Lloyd, and the Undertaker was one of the bad guys. And have you ever even seen that? Fucking
no,
Suburban Commando?
I didn't do wrestling. I
Oh
didn't grow
god, it
up
was
on wrestling.
such a great movie. It also, the neighbor next door had like drag cars, and he had a fucking rail, which is, like the top fuel cars, the big long
Yeah.
ones. They're called rails. He always parked it in front of the dude's driveway, and I remember Hogan going out there and picking it up by the front and like walking the car back and being like so amazed until I realized that those cars only weigh a couple 100 pounds, and I was like, okay, it's not that impressive. But the reason I say that, and here I am rambling, the neighbor from that movie was the gun dealer from Stop or My Mom Will Shoot, the guy that sold her the fucking Uzi out of the back of the van. He was the neighbor in Suburban Commando.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
So this is a
there
Stallone
you
movie,
go.
right?
Some War Games movie knowledge for you there. That tells you how much of a fucking movie junkie I am. I know
Well,
the fucking neighbor played the fucking gun dealer in Stop or My Mom Will Shoot.
the neighbor in Gremlins the old guy, the guy that talks about the Gremlins, like Dan Gremlins, these foreign cars. That guy is the same guy who runs the gun store in the first Terminator movie, who Terminator blows away.
Oh yeah, yeah.
The Uzi 9mm. That's the same guy.
Yeah, and that's, you know, sticking on the Terminator route, you know, fucking Bill Paxton, who is famous for being the only person ever killed by a Terminator, a Predator, and an alien.
It's true.
Which that's another one. They're getting ready to do a new fucking Predator movie. And I'm like, Jesus Christ, didn't you guys shit the bed enough with the last one with the fucking piano player with a broken nose? I mean, you tried to put the fish in there to save it, but it was a fucking failure.
But Predators was okay. I mean, it was alright. It was weird that they threw fucking
Don't talk bad about the fish. Yeah, it was Morpheus.
Was he in that movie?
Yeah. He was the guy that trapped him inside the ship.
It was weird that they threw him in there for like 10 minutes of screen time, and then he turned out to be a fucking...
Well, that was the best part of the fucking movie. I mean, the rest of the movie was utter dog shit.
That's true.
See, Star, the only reason I won't agree with you that Predators was much better than AVP, because AVP still had Lance Henriksen, who is a guy I grew up loving as an actor, because he did a bunch of really bad B movies and shit. And the best one being Stone Cold, starring Brian Bosworth. And if you guys don't know the Boz, again, I pity you, because Stone Cold was absolutely epic. It also had, shit, I can't remember the guy's name now. Now I feel horrible that I can't remember the actor's name in it. Forsyth? Or no, William Forsyth, I think. His first name's William, but yeah, one of the main bad guys.
Yeah, William Forsyth, he played Ice.
Yep, exactly. William Forsyth. God damn, I am good. But yeah, his funeral, they fucking burned him on his bike. So yeah, Stone Cold, check it out. You're welcome. Sister's first husband went to school with the Boz. Nice. Yeah, if any of you guys don't know who Brian Bosworth is, he was a total fucking action star that never really made it out of the late 80s, early 90s. He was also a football player and shit, but his movies left nothing to be desired, but Stone Cold was definitely the best of them. Plus, you get to see ass and titties, so there's always that going for you. And now that we've ventured way off of the fucking gaming path, I guess, I know we talked about graphics not meaning everything in games, which obviously, because I mean, look at what you guys are looking at. ArmA isn't exactly the most beautiful fucking game by any means.
By any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah.
It's not an attractive game.
Now, saying that, Drum showed me a video earlier of the new engine that DayZ and ArmA is going to be on. Loster, did you see that video?
No, I'm not aware of this.
I don't have the link for it right now, but it's like the thing they were showing in at least that one, like they've shown a couple different videos of the new engine, but the main thing they were showing in this one was that they had flowing water, and I was like, okay, so we have water that flows. Does that mean boats are still going to bug out and fly 500 feet up in the air and explode when you try and put them in the water, or go anywhere near them?
The mortar gunners are going to topple over every time you fucking fire your mortar?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
I don't give a shit about water.
Yeah, that's my point. Is it's like, dude, ArmA 3 has been out for what, like 4 fucking years now? And you can't even get an AI that's capable of driving down a straight fucking road without running into a street post, let alone, what do I give a fuck about flowing water? This is like fucking Call of Duty Fish all over again. Fuck off. I don't care about flowing goddamn water. I would like, AI that doesn't fucking run the opposite direction I tell them to. Or, I don't know, maybe vehicles that don't just randomly fucking explode because they magically clipped into the goddamn map. Like, how is this possibly what you guys are devoting time and money to? Like, I fucking love Bohemia. I love that they open their game up to modders and, really make a community out of it. But for fuck's sakes, man, like that loud popping you hear should not be your ears. It should be your head being removed from your ass. Because that is what needs to be done at this point. It's fucking ridiculous, man. And I'm telling you, if you get a chance, just watch it. And the best part about the entire thing isn't even, oh, we're devoting time to a new engine and making water flow and this and that. Partway through the video, it's following this fucking stream like through the entire video, and it's fucking. There's one point where, like, I don't know, through the whole thing, it's got like this really like mellow music, like that you should basically try and fall asleep to. It's basically Earth, Wind, and Fire for fuck's sakes, and it at one point in the video, it's showing the rain, and the rain still looks like someone just took the picture you're looking at and took a really good razor blade and just cut little lines through it. And that's what the rain looks like. There's no ground impacts. They've got this beautiful rippling flowing water, but the rain magically isn't hitting anywhere along that 5-foot wide, 500-foot long river. It's just, there's no impacts from the water at all. There's no ripples. And on top of that, you can visibly see the frames dropping. Like, you can see that it's not getting a solid 60 FPS or whatever it is that they're recording it at. You can see that the frames aren't solid. Like, if you look closely, you can very easily tell that it's not running smoothly. And it's like, dude, the biggest complaint with your fucking game is that you need a NASA fucking supercomputer to make it run smooth, and you're showing it off, and it's not fucking running smoothly. Like, I would think, if anything, fuck working on the water, fuck working on the trees fucking rustling in the wind, make the goddamn thing run right in the first place, and then show us what it's fucking capable of. Like, don't show off something that isn't even working properly. Or even if it, if you are going to show it off, say, granted, you should kind of assume this anyways, that it's a very early work in progress, but it's like, dude, when you're showing off a new engine for a game that has known issues of stuttering and frames and shit like that, shouldn't that be the first thing you fix and say, hey guys, look at this, your biggest complaint, it's the first fucking thing we tackled and it's fixed. Like, why is that not the first thing they're working on? It doesn't make any sense to me.
It doesn't to me either. Like, that should be the thing. Like, that should be the thing that all of your resources are going towards. Is like, fuck. I don't care how pretty this is. I don't care how realistic the wind makes the fucking grass move around. I don't give a shit. It doesn't
Well,
change the fact that at the end of the day, I'm still getting fucking 12 frames per second.
yeah.
And I shouldn't be. Like, I understand I don't have the best computer in the world. Like, I get that. But if I can run GTA 5 on 60 FPS, there's no reason why I can't play ArmA on at least like 30.
And that's, it's one of the, like, even that, it didn't look that beautiful. Like, it's not the fucking Frostbite engine. Like, it's not going to look beautiful. Like, they need to not necessarily give up on that, but like, your time is better invested in other places. And McCoy mentions that it sounds like Star Citizen. Now, where I'll disagree with that, because what videos you guys have seen, from me and Drum and shit like that, Star Citizen is a total fucking mess frame wise. Like, I can't even get as good of frames in Star Citizen as what I can in ArmA. But that's a lot to do with the optimization of servers and stuff like that. And, obviously when we're trying to play is when something new and big comes out, so everybody's trying to play and shit. And that's obviously something they need to focus on, is optimization. That's a huge fucking deal that should be fixed by now, or, should be getting all the fucking manpower they have to fix it. The reason I disagree is because what we've seen from their point of view, like from the recordings that they've put out, it can run smoothly. They've been in-game, in-engine, shown us videos of it working very smoothly. We know it is possible It's just a matter of them optimizing it properly to make it work that well for all of us, not just on, their machine at the shop. Um, so we know that's the engine is capable of doing it. It's just a matter of it being able to do it on the servers with thousands of fucking people all connected at the same time. Uh, as to where, the DayZ video that I watched is you're, you're in game and it's still stuttering. And it's not super obvious. It's not going from like 60 FPS down to like 10 and then back up and shit. But it is noticeable. At least for me, it was noticeable. I could very clearly see, especially when it started raining, that it wasn't running a solid FPS. Will they fix it? My hopes aren't that high.
Yeah, I mean, it's ArmA. I mean, I've been playing ArmA since Cold War Crisis, and it's like it's always been like buggy, and it's just one of those things that I just look past that.
Yeah.
I favor the story, I favor the game over that.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me at this point, the reason I'm so uh, adamant about the optimization is because of what we do. I mean, if it was, just me playing single player shit in ArmA, which I don't know why that's the only thing you would do, but if it is, then the game's probably not that bad at all. It could use some fucking beautification because it does look like a fucking 10-year-old game. So it does need that in that aspect. But for us, for our community, it needs optimization. It needs to run smoothly. I would fucking relish in the day where we could actually do a legit operation as a company and not have to do a single fucking infantry platoon. I would fucking love that day to be able to take 150 guys into a server and say, okay, we're taking this town. First platoon, you're the assault element. Second platoon, you're the base of fire. Third platoon, you're the security. Make it happen. Like that would be fucking great to be able to do that.
And have like
And,
6 Zeuses, like trying to
yeah.
deal with all that. Yep.
And I think the only game I've really seen that can handle stuff like that, aside from like Warcraft and shit, that's obviously nowhere near as demanding, is probably PlanetSide 2. That's the only game I've seen that can handle that many people going at it, and not obviously not like a realistic setting, but it's a first third person shooter, type shit, and you can use real tactics and shit like that. PlanetSide 2 is the only one I've seen that's able to handle that many people on a server doing something like that I can think of.
What was that stupid what Heroes and Generals, the World War II game? It's kind of like that.
Yeah, like I don't know how many people can. Heroes and Generals, I think, is only like 40 or 50 people per server.
Oh yeah, okay.
Yeah.
And then I think Resistance 3 had like 100 player servers. It
Yeah.
had like it had like 50v50.
Yeah, because I think PlanetSide 2 is like 250 or some shit, or maybe even more, that can be on there. And music mentions, that squads trying out 100-person servers, which would be cool, except that squads fucking PvP only, so there's nothing really for me there. I love the visuals of the game. I think the visuals and the audio of Squad are absolutely amazing. But the only reason I haven't bought it and played it is because it's PvP only, and I'm not that interested in it. Yeah, 250 cap per map. Yep. So yeah, I think, like I said, PlanetSide 2 is the only one I can think of that really has that large of a scale for something along those lines. So I don't know. I mean, Squad. If Squad were to go along the lines of ArmA and give us, basically a Zeus, a mission editor and shit. Yeah, it could be cool. I would deal with the first person only shit. I would probably just have to. I'd probably have to play that one on all 3 monitors to deal with it being in first person. But yeah, it being PvP only, I don't have any interest in it myself. Have you ever played it, Loster?
Squad? Yeah.
Yeah.
It's okay. It's the same thing as like for me, it's the same kind of thing as Red Orchestra. Squad severely limits your optics and shit like that, so it's kind of like Shack Tack. There's a lot of hold on.
Severely limits your optics. Oh, not sure what he means by that. I guess we'll have to ask him when he gets done doing whatever the fuck it is he's doing. But oh, somebody bought it for you. Yeah. Yeah, that's the only reason I haven't gotten into it is just purely because of the PvP aspect. And I know like some people have asked me to get into it and to play it because it does rely a lot on teamwork and tactics and stuff. Plus, they wanted to hear me yell at the idiots. But it's really stress I don't need. Like, believe it or not, getting all worked up and yelling at people isn't exactly fun for me. Like, I don't fucking end an ArmA operation that has gone badly all fucking cheerful and happy and shit. Like, generally, my voice is hoarse as fuck, and I want to go fucking take a shower, smoke half a pack of cigarettes, and have a cup of coffee, because I need to fucking de-stress for a minute.
But yeah, what I was saying was that depending on the faction that you pick, so for example, some of the maps are like in Russia, so some of the maps are you're either like the Russian army versus like some type of like militia faction, and the militia faction is usually like super underdeveloped and like under equipped.
Okay. And well, I know because I've watched quite a few videos on it, and like I've seen pretty much everyone I've seen where like a guy's carrying a saw, he's just got an M68 on it. And
Right,
I'm
that's
like,
the thing.
why the fuck does this guy only have a fucking CCO on it?
Right,
Where's
that's my point. Is that it's very like they're going for realism, like in the sense that like the squad leader will have like an RCO, but that's it. Or and
well,
like
that's
your
not
marksman
real.
will have, and then like your marksman will have like a whatever marksman rifle with a fucking like a 12x on it or something, and
That's
that's really all you're gonna get.
it's fine, except it's not real. It's everybody gets RCOs. That's the fucking standard issue optic is an RCO. Everybody has
Right.
a fucking 4X. Like, yeah, saw gunners can get an MGO, but saw gunners still use RCOs as well. Like, I remember one night I was filling in for someone and I was carrying the saw, and I had the fucking RCO on it. And this dude in my stream wanted to start fucking talking all kinds of shit about how I had an RCO on a saw and fucking, nobody puts RCOs on an M249 and this and that, and fucking you look like an idiot and all of this. And I was like, dude, I don't know about you, but I spent fucking 22 months in a fucking combat zone, and I've seen plenty of motherfuckers with saws that had RCOs on them. So I don't know where in the fuck you got your information, but mine's firsthand. And yeah, they do use fucking RCOs because it's fucking sighted for the 5.56 NATO round, dickbag. That's what the goddamn thing is made for. Like, it's the same exact bullet as the fucking M4. Plenty of guys use it on the saw, so you can fuck off somewhere. But yeah, that would be annoying as shit. Like not being able to have any type of magnified optic, especially with a fucking machine gun. Like, that doesn't make any sense to me at all.
Like, why wouldn't you put? I don't understand. Why wouldn't you put an RCO on a 249? Isn't like a 249? It's like effective up to like 800 meters or something like that.
But yeah, I mean, you can fucking area target is 1,200 meters, which is
Right.
beyond what the RCO has range markings for. But it's not. I mean, really, an RCO can be ranged for anything, but the range markings are, you know, for the 5.56 NATO round. So
Right.
that's what it's for. The saw, the only reason that has an effective area range that's longer is then you're getting into muzzle velocity, barrel length, and shit like that. But it's still the same bullet. It still has the same trajectory. It's still the exact same round. I mean, that's why you can take an M4 magazine and put it into a saw. Like that's real world. You can attach an M4 magazine to a saw and use it. It's the same exact bullet. It has the same flight path, the same trajectory, bullet drop, everything. It's just, differences in barrel lengths and shit like that can affect muzzle velocity. But yeah, it's all the exact same bullet.
Oh, and also what I was gonna say, just real quick before I forget, is like was gonna go back to squad. And in the maps where it's like the Russian army versus like a Russian militia, The fucking militia has like nothing when it comes to like equipment wise. Like they have like these fucking antiquated smoke grenades and shit like that that take fucking forever to like pop. They're like the ones where you got to scrape
That's
the
yeah, the tab on the top of
the
it.
tab. It's like
Um,
a whole Pepsi can.
yeah, but that's actually one of the things that I've seen in Squad that I really liked was the smoke and
Yeah,
how it plumes and stuff. I was really impressed by that. Like we kind of have that in ArmA, but that's because of a fucking mod that's not in the base game. Uh, but yeah, I was like really impressed by that because a lot
yeah,
of people don't realize how much smoke actually plumes out of a goddamn smoke grenade. Uh, isn't the rifling in the barrel 249 M4? Yeah, that's why it ends up the RCO works for it. And like Vert was saying, you know, as far as what you're issued, it depends on what the unit has in the fucking armory. You know, this division may have a bunch of extra MGOs. This division may have a bunch of extra RCOs. It's whatever the fuck they got laying around for you. It's that simple. There's no like special formula to it or whatever. At the end of the day, it all comes down to supply and who has what. That's it. There's no magic fucking equation to it. Or you know, you're a better marksman, so you get the MGO and you get the RCO because you can't hit a fucking barn from 100 feet away. No, it's just, hey, what do we got sitting back there? Well, this kind of works and it doesn't have too much duct tape or glue on it. All right, give them that.
all right, give them that.
Uh, and so we've rambled on a lot tonight because, well, it's what we do, I guess. But before we end it out here, as we're getting kind of close to that time, is there any other things or any other kind of last minute talking points you wanted to go over tonight, Loster?
Not really, because I could spend another half hour talking about what I want with like a new subject. So I mean,
Yeah.
that's up to you. It's your show, boss. I mean, I'm fine.
Well,
I can ramble on all night.
we'll save it for the next one. I can't give you guys
Okay.
too much on a single night. So we are going to wrap it up there, guys. Definitely appreciate you guys hanging out. Loster, I would say thank you for coming, but I don't like you, so fuck off. But I appreciate all of you guys tuning in. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it as per usual. We'll be back at it here shortly for the Wee Woo Op. We'll be killing some zombies. And I hear tell there may be a wild Amish up here tonight. I don't know. I'll believe it when I fucking see it. But yeah, we'll be back in a little bit for some zombie killing. And as far as the rest of the week is concerned, I do have a race coming up. Or actually 2 races Friday, MX-5s at Nürburgring, and then GT3s at Spa. And unfortunately, any of you guys that caught the stream last night, I think it was, no, Oculus, when they did their last update, they broke the dashboard in the Oculus beta thing that I use, so I can no longer read chat when I'm in VR. So unfortunately, at least for now, while I'm racing, I won't be able to actually interact with you guys. You just gotta, I guess, watch me race and listen to what's on my mind at the time. And then this weekend, you know, we got OSUT and all of that good stuff. So again, hopefully you guys enjoyed. Appreciate you all hanging out. Appreciate all of the support, Salt and Supa with the subscriptions tonight. And I will see you all later.